But today I wanted to talk a little bit about Thailand. We have some friends of Thailand here. I wanted to talk about the relationship between Thailand and Argentina because we see Argentina as an important strategic partner in this part of the world. And pretty soon, in the year 2015, we will be celebrating the 60th anniversary of our relationship. So the best way to celebrate our relationship is to enhance our partnership. That's basically the purpose of my visit here. That's why I flew 30 hours to be here in Buenos Aires. And I'm sure you're also interested in developments in my part of the world, in Asia and in ASEAN in particular, because I'm sure you've been following what's been happening. We have both very positive news. Also, we have some news that probably causes of concern, like the situation in the South China Sea, for instance. So I hope to be able to address some of these issues. But I wanted to say that I'm here for political consultations, and I had a very good meeting with Vice Minister Swasin yesterday. And really, I wanted to underscore the importance that we attach to Latin America, and the fact that perhaps we really need to strengthen the links between Asia and Latin America, because there's a lot of potential out there. And these days, distance is no barrier to having closer contacts, to forging closer links. So my discussion is centered on not just the bilateral relationship, but what Argentina and Thailand can do to forge closer links between Latin America and Asia, particularly between ASEAN and East Asia. Of course, we have this framework called FELAC, which I think we meet once every 2 years at the ministerial level, but that's not enough. We have just a meeting and then we don't really have follow-ups to the results of our discussion, so we really have to do more. And I also believe that we in Asia, because we're a diverse group, we are in the process of building our own version of regionalism. We're engaged in economic integration. I think there's a lot out there, a lot of potential for our integration, but we do have a lot to learn from what you are doing, because you've been engaging in regionalism for a long time. Now I think you're advancing to another level. You have UNISUR, you have CELAC, and you have MERCOSUR. So we have a lot to learn from what you are doing here in Latin America in terms of regionalism. And Thailand was a country in trouble a few years back. As you know, we had political difficulties. We had the division between the so-called red shirts and yellow shirts. And don't ask me what it's all about. Some say it's pro-Thaksin, anti-Thaksin. Thaksin is our former prime minister. But it's really about, moving to. It's really an evolution of Thai democracy. Because as we become a middle-income country, people want to have greater say in politics. They want to have their rightful place in Thai politics. So I see this as a natural consequence of our economic development. And somehow we will have to manage this important phase, especially by way of national reconciliation. And it must be real national reconciliation. And right now, the Parliament is open. There are many national reconciliation bills before the Parliament, some very political, some not so political. So it's going to be a crucial period for Thai politics the next few months as we discuss how to move forward with national reconciliation. But I think all in all, we have returned to political stability. This government has won a big mandate from the people, a mandate for reforms, a mandate for reconciliation, a mandate to move the country forward. Our economy, I think in spite of our political difficulties, we are doing quite well. We have strong economic fundamentals. Last year, in spite of just having come out of the severe floodings, our economy grew at 6.4%. Now this year, it will be a little bit lower because of the global economic crisis, the slowdown of the Chinese economy, so we expect 5%. But 5% is still respectable performance. And what more I think, and this is the point I wanted to make, is Thailand is situated right in the center of Southeast Asia. And so we have that strategic location, and we're trying to convert that into a strategic role in the region in terms of promoting good relations with our neighbors, helping our neighbors to develop, promoting integration of ASEAN and broader integration in East Asia. So we're trying to pursue a very proactive foreign policy. Before that, we could not do so because of our domestic political situation. But now, since we have more stability, we're trying to reach out. And so our foreign policy is not just focused in the region, but we're reaching out to new friends, new partners. I just came back last week. I was with our Prime Minister. You know where she was? She was in Mozambique, Tanzania, and Uganda. And so this is a part of the foreign policy of reaching out. And naturally, we want to reach out to Latin America. And our Prime Minister definitely is preparing to come for a visit, maybe early next year to a few countries in Latin America. And definitely, Argentina will be high on her agenda. I can assure you that. So I see, there's a lot of opportunities for closer links between Latin America and Asia. And I think Thailand and Argentina can work together to forge closer links between the two regions. But I think what is important of all, because as I said, in this day and age, distance is not a barrier, but sometimes the mindset is the barrier. The fact that the perception is that we are far away, or we see you as being far away. But nowadays, with the ease of communication, transportation, even the internet, we communicate real time. So distance is not the barrier. It's how to have more contact, how to get to know one another better, how to understand our respective aspirations. Because in the end, I think our aspirations are one and the same. So let me spend a few minutes talking about Asia, what's happening in my part of the world. I think you all agree with me that Asia has captured the headlines these days. People talk about the Asian century. In a way, yes, we have achieved the Asian century, but we still have much more to do. But the reality is that Asia has achieved unprecedented growth, unprecedented prosperity, and also peace, more peace and stability than what existed before. And the challenge here for Asia is how to sustain what we have achieved, because it's not that easy. We want more open regionalism. We should be open to the outside world while we integrate among us in Asia. That's very important. But as I look at the overall situation, and I remarked this to many of my friends who come to visit us in Thailand, is that there is a dichotomy in Asia, in East Asia and Asia Pacific right now. Because in terms of geoeconomics, I think we're doing everything right. But in terms of geopolitics, I think there are a lot of risks out there, and increasingly so. Geoeconomics, I think you're very familiar. Asia is now the engine of global economy. China is leading the way. We have Japan, pursuing a policy of Abenomics, trying to revive its economy. It's still a very important economy, the third largest in the world. We have Korea at the cutting edge of new technology. I think all of us use Samsung smartphone these days. It shows how far has come. And India, increasingly economic success story, and wanting to be more of Southeast Asia and East Asia than South Asia, because the economic opportunities are in Southeast Asia and East Asia, not in South Asia. And so India is becoming an important player in the region. And then you have microgrid, the ASEAN countries, 10 ASEAN countries. Now 10 under one umbrella. But when ASEAN was founded in 1967, that was not the case. It was a divided Southeast Asia. The ambassador of Vietnam would attest to that. We had so-called non-communist bloc, and then the socialist communist bloc. We went through our struggles with the Cold War, we had a confrontation. But at the end, we realized that we can only achieve real peace when we come together as a region, try to reduce conflict, live together in harmony, because our priorities are promoting economic development, achieving economic prosperity. So now we have an ASEAN 10. But we're going beyond that, because ASEAN 10 is not enough. So we're trying to achieve what we call the ASEAN Community 2015. It's the words, these are the words that you'll hear every time you come to ASEAN Community. And what is an ASEAN Community? An ASEAN Community has 3 pillars. The main pillar that people talk about is economic community. So we're trying to be one single market, and we have achieved, in fact, free trade for most of our products already. We're trying to be one single production base. And when we combine the markets in ASEAN, the total number is 600 million people. So it's a big market. There's a lot of potential here. But the other pillars that we have to give importance to is the political security pillar and the social cultural pillar. Because we don't want to be an ASEAN community of governments and private sector. We want to be a community of the peoples of ASEAN, like what we're doing here in the region. And importantly, the political security community should not be about security cooperation between and among governments, just living at peace, having no conflict, but how to enhance the security of the people. Human security is very important. And this is where human rights come in. I have to say that in ASEAN, we have not made that much progress in human rights, having served as president of the Human Rights Council, because there is so much diversity in ASEAN. There are differences in political system, different level of economic development. So it's natural to have some different concepts of human rights. For many of us, economic, social rights are more important than political, civil rights. But we're trying to move forward on human rights because we know that this is the standard by which the international community measures us. This is the standard which becomes a criteria for having relations with ASEAN. So we recognize that we have to move forward on human rights because these are universal values, whatever the political debate. And here, I'm very pleased that we have, in fact, progress under the ASEAN Charter. In all the ASEAN Charter is like our constitution. In all the documents that was concluded in ASEAN, there were never any direct reference to democracy and human rights. But in the ASEAN Charter, you have democracy, you have human rights, you have fundamental freedoms, you have rule of law, social justice. So I think that shows that we recognize that universal values are important. We have to embrace them if we're going to be a credible regional organization. We have set up the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. I shared the working group that drafted the terms of reference. It was difficult because we had different perception. But we're moving in that direction. Our commission is not like a commission that you have here that can go out and investigate violations of human rights. Much of the work that's done by our commission is in various protection. But hopefully, we'll be moving forward. gradually. We just recently adopted, last year, the ASEAN Declaration on Human Rights. So we are moving forward and trying to become a community, a real community in the sense of not just economic community, a political community, a community for people, and a community that embraces universal values. So these are some of the points that I wanted to point out with regard to ASEAN. But what's important also is that the process of integration in the region does not end with ASEAN. ASEAN is now, as if lateral Philippines would agree, is the driving force for broader integration. We have the ASEAN +3 forum, which is ASEAN plus Korea plus China and Japan. And we're engaging in very close economic cooperation. And now we have, we call the ASEAN +6, which is +3 more India, Australia, and New Zealand. And what we have just embarked upon is a regional free trade area that covers ASEAN and these 6 very key economies of the region. So broader integration is what we're trying to achieve. And it's not just about economic integration, but when you integrate, you lessen the chance of conflict, and you build up the foundation of peace and stability, and this is what we're hoping. So that's all of the possible developments when you think about the geoeconomics of the region. But when you look at the geopolitics, I think we have a more disconcerting picture. First, well, I think all the major powers recognize that they have very important strategic, security, economic interests in Asia Pacific. And so, what we have right now is more competition. Competition is okay, but if it's a zero-sum competition, like during the Cold War, this is not good for the region, and you don't want this to take place. But what do we have? We have a rising China. People ask, where is the rising China headed? Definitely, we're concerned because China is more assertive. But China said that because I want to be recognized as a major power, so I have to be assertive of my rights. But still, people are concerned because Chinese are building up military strength. They're more aggressive when it comes to the South China Sea. So, in spite of the assurance by the leaders of China that it's a peaceful rise, I think what's important is action, not just words alone. And then we have what we call the strategic rebalancing of the United States, the so-called famous pivot to Asia, which is good because we still have a source of instability in the region, the Korean Peninsula, the South China Sea. So all of us feel comfortable when we have the United States present as a stabilizing influence in the region. But if that policy, because the emphasis has been a lot on the security aspect, on the relationship with treaty allies, on the concern about China being not abiding by the rules of the game, if that policy becomes or is interpreted as a policy of containment of China, then this is not good for the region as a whole. And we always remind the United States that they have to be more comprehensive in their rebalancing policy. And then you have Japan. Japan that feels increasingly insecure because of the last 2 decades of economic growth, because of a rising China, because of the problems they have with China in the past. So we have a Japan that is trying to revive itself economically and operationally. Politically, in terms of security, they're trying to expand, build up their military. They talk about reforming their constitution to allow for the right of collective defense. I think if it makes Japan more secure, more confident, then this is all right. But if they pursue an increasingly nationalistic policy, which they have been doing, maybe this is for domestic political purposes, I hope, it will create anxiety on the part of China. And if Japan seeks to ally itself with the United States more and with other countries, then we have the ingredients of more trouble ahead. And this is what we're most concerned about, is the relationship between China and Japan. We're not so a few months back or last year, we were quite concerned about where the relationship between China and the US is heading. But I think they're in the process of really finding their new relationship, because the US is coming back, China is a major power now. And I think they've been doing that, they're sorting out that relationship. President Xi Jinping just went to Washington, and I think there's a great understanding, because too much is at stake for the relationship between China and the United States to come to a break. But that is not the case with Japan, because the relationship between China and Japan is not just about the present-day problems. It's, you have the islands, yes, but it's about what goes back into history. They've never overcome the bitter part of their history. The Japanese have never come with an unequivocal apology. I apologize for what happened in Nanjing. I apologize for our occupation of Manchuria. They have never done that, because that's not in the tradition of the Japanese, because they believe in continuity, because they have the emperor, the institution of the monarchy. And so it's difficult for them to say that that is the worst part of their history. They close that chapter. And so we in Thailand and in ASEAN, we're watching closely the developments of the relations between Japan and China, because this is a triangular relationship that has the most bearing on security of the region: U.S., China, and Japan. The U.S.-Japan is not a problem. They're close allies. U.S.-China, I think they're working things out. But the relations on this side between China and Japan is still very troubled, very problematic. There has not been any ministerial visit between the two countries since the tension began. And what's even worse is that both sides, rightly or wrongly, are fanning up nationalistic sentiments at home. Recently, there's been an influx of Japanese investment into Thailand. The reason? Because they're not certain about investment in China anymore. So, in a way, we benefited from the present state of relations between Japan and China. But that's not what we want. We want healthy, constructive relations among the three major powers. India, yes, but India is not a major player yet. I think India doesn't want to get into this kind of situation. They're more interested in the economic engagement with the region. So we were very closely monitoring what's happening in this triangular relationship. But what can ASEAN do? ASEAN, the 10 countries of ASEAN, we always claim that ASEAN has a central role in the regional architecture. We have a central role in strengthening multilateral institutions in the region. What we don't have, like what we have here in the region, is strong multilateral institution for dialogue and cooperation. We're working at that. Much of these multilateral institutions are ASEAN-centered. We have the ASEAN +1 dialogue relations with 12 dialogue partners, all of them in the region, minus the EU. We have the ASEAN +3 that I talked about. We have the ARF, the ASEAN Regional Forum, which is a forum for security dialogue. On East Asia Pacific, we have countries from Asia Pacific taking part. We have this most recent creation called the East Asia Summit, which brings together ASEAN +6, plus 2 more important countries, the United States and Russia. This is the preeminent forum for strategic dialogue in the region. And it brings together all the leaders. President Obama came, and the leaders of Russia, and all the leaders came to this meeting. But it's still, these institutions are still evolving, because sometimes the tradition in ASEAN is that we don't enjoy talking things so much directly. We like to talk about the good things, and we don't talk about, the sensitive matters, especially the problem that we have, and we have to try to overcome this, is this principle of non-interference. You don't cling, in Africa, in Latin America, you don't cling rigidly to this principle of non-interference. Because let's say you have a change of government by constitutional means in your region, the other countries will certainly come out against it. In Africa as well. We don't have that tradition in ASEAN. So it's not only that we have these institutions, we have to change the way we operate within the region. We have to be able to tackle sensitive issues. We have to recognize our interdependence. And we have to talk about domestic issues that affect other countries. So if these institutions are really going to work to promote peace and stability, because we cannot just have free trade alone. We need to have strong institutions, and what we have here. And this is the challenge ahead for us. But as we try to integrate within the region, it's also important for us to reach out, as I said. And we want to reach out to Africa, because we have a dialogue with Asia and Europe, an annual dialogue, ministerial level. And every 2 years we have a summit. We don't have any forum between Asia and Africa. That's why my Prime Minister was in Africa, to talk about closer unification in Africa. We don't have, well, we do have a high-level forum between Asia and Latin America. We don't have. And I think, we don't do justice to our potential. We don't have this kind of linkages. And we have FREELAC. FREELAC is one meeting, nothing. There's no follow-up action. So how do we forge these closer linkages between Asia and Latin America? And this is the question that I'd like to throw out to you. And this is what I talked about with Vice Minister Swasin yesterday. And hopefully Thailand and Argentina can be strategic partners, not only promoting our bilateral relations, but helping to forge closer linkages between our two regions. So thank you very much.